Quran says that it is Allah who causes this leaf to fall. Atheist, based on lessons from science books, says that it is the earth that pulls the leaf. Then someone called a classical theist comes along and proposes a new judgment to reconcile these two ideas. Alright, he says to the atheist, let gravity be the cause of the leaf falling. But you must also accept that this entire system was designed by a deity before the Big Bang. And he tries to convince the atheist. Fine-tuning, he says. Something like 10 to the 10 to the 123. The atheist resists. He talks about parallel universes. However, there is a serious problem. No one is asking whether the Quran accepts this reconciliatory judgment. Yet what the Quran says is very clear. It is not the earth that pulls the leaf, but directly and only directly Allah. Similarly, I have watched many programs and videos where the existence of Allah was debated without reference to the Quran. Whether intentionally or not, there was incredible deception in these videos. Many atheists did not know what kind of deity they were denying, and many Muslims did not know what kind of deity they believed in. As someone born in modern times and constantly exposed to materialistic explanations of the universe through science and engineering lessons, I had failed to notice this for years. I could not understand the concept of Tawhid that the Quran offered me until I read a certain book, until I encountered a staff that brought forth water wherever it struck. Now, this video might be somewhat theoretical, but it will serve as a foundation and method for upcoming videos on atheism and the existence of Allah. The symbol you see in the top right corner represents this method, and its meaning will be revealed at the end of the video. Discussions about the existence or non-existence of a deity in the public sphere often revolve around two main topics. One of them is the Big Bang. How did the universe begin? Mathematical data is presented on this topic. The probabilities of the values that must exist during the explosion for the emergence of current life are discussed. And the side that proves the existence of God uses the extreme improbability of these probabilities as evidence, arguing that there must be an initial intellect that chose the possibility of human life and calls this God. The existence of a first cause. It must be accepted as a first cause. On the other hand, the denier, for example, talks about parallel universes. They say that if the number of trials is infinite, probabilities lose their significance, or they present other theories. Anyway, what matters to me is that the event occurred 14 billion years ago. Well, there is another event from billions of years ago that serves as evidence. This is another significant topic regarding the existence of God. The issue of evolution, believers, non-believers, debates. For instance, I once saw someone who rejected evolution, talking about the improbability of the emergence of the first protein. In other words, they said a deity must exist for the first protein to emerge. I think this means that while a deity is not needed for the current proteins to exist, it is necessary for the first protein. Anyway, there are also theists who accept evolution. They believe the process was designed by God in advance. This is called intelligent design. Skeptics counter this by saying that millions of years of processes could achieve this or that, the intelligent designer could be an alien, and so on and so forth. What matters to me is this. In a fundamental issue like the existence of a deity, which directly concerns even an illiterate woman in Anatolia, the evidence must be very clear, simple and easily visible to everyone. But the events argued by the parties occurred billions of years ago, very distant, complex events that we can only examine theoretically. In other words, they are not things you can go out and see currently, but things of a kind that cannot be witnessed. To me, this is a scandal and a shameful situation for a Muslim who says, I bear witness that there is no deity but Allah. I learned the reason for this much later as I read Risale-i-Nur. I learned that the deity described to us in the Quran is not just a deity who initiated or designed the universe. This might be the case in deism or in many groups of other corrupted divine religions. But in the Tawhid teaching brought to us by Muhammad, peace be upon him, Allah is not only the creator of the first living being, but also the direct creator of all living beings born today. Just as Allah initiated the beginning of the universe, He is also directly the agent and manager of all activities happening right now. Look, I say directly. If we were to unfold time as a strip, it would not be a deity who initiated the strip at the very beginning with a horizontal belief, but a deity who, with a vertical belief, is the agent of every action at every moment as taught by the Quran. In other words, it is not like someone who intelligently designs domino pieces beforehand, makes the first move, and then does not interfere with the rest. He is the one who creates everything at every moment. Islam rejects the compulsory relationship of cause and effect, and the causes that science discovers and presents to us almost as alternative deities such as enzymes, DNA, and so on, and does not accept them as the agents of actions. So why are we going back? If the Quran claims that the entity with knowledge and life is the one causing this leaf to fall right now according to the formula described by Newton, and atheism rejects this, why are we going back 14 billion years to discuss the Big Bang? If the Quran claims that the division of DNA, which happens millions of times within each of us right now, is done by an entity with knowledge and life, and atheism already contradicts this here, why are we discussing the formation of the first protein billions of years ago? If we are separately considering the evolution of a sperm cell into a baby body in 9 months right now, why are we discussing evolution, which is claimed to have occurred billions of years ago? We need to discuss these matters. Rest assured, these events involve settings far more precise than 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 123, and they are not one-time occurrences like the Big Bang or the first living organism. In fact, even the 3 examples I just mentioned are happening moment by moment in millions of different places right now. And if we can't agree on how these occur, which we don't, we will discuss these at length in the upcoming sections. Then bringing evidence from billions of years ago is absurd and leads to deception. I liken this to the following. Let's say these 2 characters are watching a movie and they are at the 50th minute of the film. One of them believes that there must be a constant supply of electricity from behind for an image to appear on the screen. The other is an electricity atheist. They have other explanations for the image on the screen. They don't accept electricity and will debate its existence or non-existence. But the one who believes in electricity ignores the current image on the screen and goes back to the first frame of the movie 50 minutes ago saying, "Bro, remember 50 minutes ago the first image of the movie appeared on the screen?" Well, for that to happen, there must have been electricity, dude. Because without electricity, how could that first image appear on the screen? Okay, but bro, electricity is also needed for the current image to appear on the screen. It must directly affect the screen, and you can provide evidence for this based on the current image. The guy doesn't accept electricity for the current image. Why are you taking him back 50 minutes? Then he thinks that you agree on the entire 50-minute process, but disagree on how the movie started. I claim that right now many atheists and many Muslims, especially those studying science or medical faculties, think they agree on how the earth revolves around the sun. Or we are on the same page regarding a baby born today. For them, we only disagree on how the universe began. In other words, who pressed the start button? Who triggered the Big Bang? So this has been the whole issue. Here's the interesting part. Let's say we proved the designer deity before the Big Bang and our atheist friend believed it. How much would this change anything? This person still doesn't attribute current actions to God. We proved the God of deism. The current actions are not performed by the deity described in the Quran. Even worse, when we discuss the matter through the Big Bang billions of years ago or the first living being, we give the impression that we accept their explanations for the entire process in between or for current events. Then they rightly say, well, science explains so much, and you accept it. They say, just because science hasn't yet explained what happened before the Big Bang or the first living being, you place a deity there. The God of the gaps. We'll discuss this in 2 chapters, but the fault lies with us here. We didn't talk to the person about the present, about causes, enzymes, or DNA not being the ones performing actions. They didn't know. Well, how much did we know? You see, friends, I learned this from the Risale-i Nur collection. In the Risale-i Nur collection, a very large portion, perhaps 1,000 pages, deals with the topic of God's existence and unity. But except for a few exceptions, you won't see discussions about the beginning of the universe or the origin of life. It's entirely about the current transmission of sound through the air, the current flowers, the formation of trees, humans, and animal births, providing evidence from observable areas, which is exactly the Quran's method. Although about a quarter of the Quran discusses unity, the majority of evidence is drawn from areas like the current rainfall, the alternation of day and night, and the growth of plants. Bediüzzaman compares this to the following. Let's say our goal is to bring water. Laying pipes from the top of the mountains to here to bring water is a difficult method. The pipes can get clogged, cut off, the route is long, and so on. But if you have a drilling device, or let's call it the staff of Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, and you can extract water from wherever you strike it, this is much easier. This Quranic method applied throughout the Risale-i Nur, without needing to go back millions of years, extracts the water of Tawheed, the most fundamental need of everyone, from every atom it sees, from trees, from flies, from flowers, and so on. That is why we will call this method the red staff, and it will become a symbol for the following sections. In the videos where you see this symbol, evidence will be brought not from the past, which you cannot see right now, but from areas you can witness daily in the present. Because saying, I bear witness that there is no deity but Allah, bearing witness that there is no deity other than Allah, is the shortest and most solid path. Well, I can imagine many new questions forming in your minds. So, what does science explain to us? The falling of a leaf, the division of DNA, and so on. We have a long journey ahead to discuss all of these, but before all of that, before moving on to new evidence, we will embark on the discovery of a veil in front of our eyes. Because if there is a veil in front of your eyes, no matter how much evidence there is, you cannot see it. I think the problem does not lie in the evidence but in a method of thinking that has been taught to all of us, atheists and theists alike, as sacred since childhood, turned into an idol, and prevents us from seeing the evidence, which is actually just dogma. What am I talking about?